Hey, hi everyone. I'm excited today to have Santosh Sharan join us on the podcast. If you don't know Santosh, you really need to. Santosh is the founder and CEO of Zier AI. I'm going to let him explain more about what Zier does. But what you should know about Santosh is prior to Zier, he has had an illustrious career as an executive with ZoomInfo, Apollo, RB2B, and other companies. Welcome to the podcast, Santosh. Would love for you to tell us about your career journey and really what led you to start Zier.
Thanks, Andre. Thrilled to be here and looking forward to this conversation. A lot of people um, switch careers. 15, 17 years ago, when I got into go to market and data, I wanted to have mastery in the space. So I made a conscious decision where I did switch companies very frequently, sometimes every 2 years, but I stayed in the same space. So what that did to me is, fast forward to today, I have worked either directly or as advisor, board members, or contractor or consultant, in 30 plus go-to-market and data companies.
Wow.
And that gives me a unique foresight and insight, not just in individual companies, but the entire space, right? I can look at trends, not only look at it from a macro perspective, I can also tell you exactly how these companies, oftentimes they all compete with each other, are going to respond to this trend because I know the team and their business and some intimate knowledge. So that kind of is, I would say, a unique perspective or part of my career. Now, to Zier.
Exactly.
So, in the last 15, 17 years, I've only seen a couple of times when I felt like go to market was undergoing such a rapid transition.
So
So,
true. So
if you
true.
look, and I decided to do something about it. So, if you look at today, everybody's pipeline is down, right? What worked before no longer works, right? So buyers are not showing up, no shows are high, emails don't respond, it's all going to spam. People are not responding to unsolicited phone calls,
Yeah.
and it's getting tough for reps. So I decided to do something about it. Last quarter, I was looking at some numbers, and I realized I have probably contributed to creating this problem. And I'll talk more about what the problem is and how we are solving. But Zier is a response to what I think is a generational change in go-to-market that we are going to undergo in the next few years.
Yeah, I actually, obviously happen to believe that, and you and I have spoken, and we may have come up with different products, but I think any of us that have been in the GTM space
Right.
feels that acutely. As we've said, many people have said, the old playbook is broken, and actually, I would say this: if we're all completely honest, we don't actually know
Right.
what the new playbook like. In a moment of honesty, we're all sitting around
Right.
just having a drink. We'd say, look, we don't actually know, but we're working out our thesis, and we're trying to, and so that's what makes me excited about talking to you, because I think both you and I agree on this thing, which is, the GTM is broken, right? And we both want to fix it, and we have different points of view, but I think we have that same mindset. But I'm curious about one thing before we jump into that particular
Yeah.
thing. Why, in terms of, you had been with a number of different companies, you chose specifically to jump back into doing a startup. And obviously, it's a great, like you said, it's a generational moment in time. Is that the only reason? Or were there other reasons that made you say, "Hey, you know what? I've worked for a lot of different companies. I'm actually wanting to start a company."
Yeah. Yeah. What I have found very fulfilling in my career is I've been part of, and I got good at undergoing rapid transformation or growth transformations in companies. So I was part of journeys that went from whatever single digit million in revenue to 30 million in a year
Hmm.
or year and a half, or to $1 billion valuation in like from tens of million valuation in like year and a half, or um,
Yeah.
and I realize, so what I'm working on, and I'll share that in a minute in more detail. Um, it's something very obvious, but I realized that not many people want to take that approach. Unless I start my own company, it's very difficult, or
Mm.
it was very difficult to build a completely new. I'm flipping the funnel in a way,
Yeah.
right? And that's very risky for larger companies that I was part of,
Yeah.
that I was either working at or advising. The only way to make this happen was to start on my own. So eventually, I waited, I tried, I proposed, I made business case wherever I was, but it was too much of a risk. People,
Yeah.
with innovation, especially like when there are VCs involved or P firms involved, or they look at incremental innovation, right? And that's where most
Yeah.
of the industry, and even what you are doing, uh, is going after the same problem, just like taking a different stab at it, right?
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and what you're doing is also disruptive innovation, or you are
Yeah.
drawing a line away from everyone else in the same space, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to do something similar. I find that most companies just want to improve 20% over what's already out there, and that's not risky at all, because you already have buyers. You're just coming to market with a slightly better product, and you're guaranteed higher revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm working on couldn't be done
I
any other
see.
way.
Okay. Well, you've certainly teed that up, and maybe an appropriate next question is just like, very few folks, as you've rightly said, have had your sort of unique experience. You've been with like major B2B data providers like Zoom Info, Apollo. You've seen a lot of changes in the industry. So why don't you walk us through? I know this may be a good way to sort of introduce what you're doing with Zier, but how has, in your point of view, how has the go-to-market um, framework changed? Uh, our particular interest on this podcast is around prospecting, but how has prospecting changed? Because it feels way more difficult, as you alluded
Right.
to, than even 5, 6 years ago. How has
Let
it
me
changed? What's driving the change and
Right.
that kind of thing?
So I think there are two or three questions in this. Let me take what's driving the change, and particularly around prospect, and then we'll go back to
Yep.
Zia. So 10 years ago, say a company raised $50 million in funding, and the CMO of that company would receive, say, 5 inquiries saying, "Hey, congratulations! Um, you know, here's what we do, and we think we could help you with the next uh, chapter of your growth, right?
Yeah.
And talk to us." Now they were using signals, and these
Yep.
signals were difficult to obtain, and those emails were difficult to get right, and only few companies did right. And so the CMO of this company, let's say, or CEO, would receive these 5 emails, and some of them would work because it was so contextual. There was already demand. The CEO is trying to figure out what to do next, and somebody reaches out. Now fast forward to today. The same CEO raises $50 million company. Their inbox gets inundated with 100 plus emails that look exactly the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now they don't know what to do with it. So what has happened, and this is to your question of what is breaking, perfectly good, perfectly rational playbook. So David Sachs says this, right? If a good playbook is overused, it becomes ineffective.
Yeah.
So what we have seen is the abundance of automation and data in go to market. And this abundance has led to parity amongst playbook. So every tool now has funding signal.
Yep.
So
Yep.
everybody's got access to it. Now, for each company, it's like it's harmless. It's like only 100 emails go out every day, or 50 email. But they don't realize there are 10,000 other companies that are using the same tool
Yeah.
and same data and same signal. and to the same buyer that raised money that day, right? So now,
And,
now it's totally ineffective, right? So that's just one example of what is broken. Of course, the sellers, we can say they're lazy, but then are they lazy because they're just learning to the same school, same forums, and
yeah.
they're getting the same best practice, but there is time to kind of change. But
What,
let me
what's
pause. You have
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Santosh, is I've often said this, right? Because there's a lot of there are some axioms out there that say, personalization, that's what you need more of.
right,
But as I always like to say to people, like, first of all, personalization um, doesn't help much. Let's say, that same example you gave, and I take time to write a really, really good email. The problem is that it's a little bit like if I send you a really well written hand note and I emailed it physically to your home address, but on that same day you get inundated with like 500,
right,
direct mail
right.
pieces. It'll get lost
It
in
doesn't
there.
help even if it's personalized,
Yeah,
right?
even if I took all
Yeah,
the time to write a really personal note, right? Like, hey, thanks for being on the podcast, this, whatever. It's going to get lost in the, 500 pieces of mail you got, that particular day, right? So there is that aspect where it's just, it's the aspect of the sheer volume that automation has driven.
right.
And then the point you're making is that when you use signals that are very common, you're not there, there's no differentiation, in terms of the outreach.
Right, right. And this is kind of generates demand for what you are doing, right? So it's like we don't all drive the same car. We all have different, we don't wear the same clothes or eat at the same restaurant. So
Right,
then why do we use the same signals?
right,
And
right.
um, so prospecting, I think, broke uh, primarily because the sellers, uh, so there was parity in go to market. Everybody got the same good practice, right? And some sellers should have stayed ahead of the curve and maybe looked for proprietary signals, or
Yeah,
they could have done something different. I feel like this is always going to be the case even 20
yeah.
years from now. Whatever we come up with, very quickly it'll become a parity for everyone, and then we'll be
Mhm.
back to square one, right? So this I think the other trend that led to this was also, so you and I have worked in this space to know that if you turn the clock back 15 years or 20 years, there was only a handful of companies that could afford data sets from, say, the likes of DNB, and it would
Mhm.
cost like $250,000.
True, true.
So, and they were like, IBM would certainly use these strategies 20 years ago, right? But then
Yeah,
startups couldn't. But fast forward today with like $50, they can afford the same tool and
yeah,
data. So this making it mainstream has also
yeah.
contributed to the problem, right?
So sort of a commoditization of and
Right,
availability of data, basically.
right, right.
All right. So what is the solution, or at least in your
So-
point of view?
Right, right.
Our point of view is that custom signals are very important.
Totally.
But I'm obviously very interested in hearing your point of view on
Right,
Zier.
right. No, custom signals are very important. In fact, what we are building, we could also leverage custom signals. So we should talk maybe offline and see how
Yeah.
to integrate. But we are building a buyer-led agentic go-to-market platform. So we are flipping the funnel where
Hmm.
go-to-market starts with seller-led, where sellers say, okay, there are 10,000 people in my TAM. I need to try and find out which of them are in market to buy,
Hmm.
using signals or using outreach if they're lazy without signals, or but in other ways, right? We are flipping that a little bit. So Gartner has been talking about buyer-led, how buyers don't want to include sellers until 80% of their
Yes.
journey, but nobody built any tools for the buyer,
Yeah.
right?
That's
There's
true.
no tools to optimize that journey. So we are building multiple buyer apps and tools where buyers could come to our platform um, and do research, not just vendor research, any kind of research. They could say, hey, I'm having churn problem today. Or
Hmm.
buyers could say, hey, I need to hire a controller. What do I do?
Hmm.
Or I need to build, my boss wants me to do blah. how do I do this, right?
Mm.
So what we do is we use AI research to find playbooks. We also bring some agencies and consultants and peers that have already solved those problems and try to, and this is all AI based, right? Try to
Mm.
connect and schedule calls. We also share this top of the mind that buyers have with agencies and sellers that are signed up on a platform and invite them to provide a solution. So we go to
Mm.
these agencies and say, hey, this was a question from a VP of marketing of $100 million company that, and we found a solution using AI, but do you have something to add, right?
Mm.
So this becomes a soft intent. And if they add playbook and there's back and forth conversation, it turns into a hard intent where we go ahead and
Sure.
schedule calls between the buyer. So what we feel, um, and somewhere in between, just one more thing, we are creating everybody that logs into a platform, we create a digital twin for them, for sellers, buyers,
Mm-hmm.
agencies, vendors. Everybody gets a assistant or an agent, and these agents eventually, you tell the agents what do you really want, and then these agents go and have conversations with other agent on a platform through A2A conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So think about a buyer that wants to buy a CRM and there are 20 vendors they want to evaluate. Now they won't have time to evaluate it, do the discovery call themselves. They could come up with five qualifying questions and ask their
Yeah.
agent, buyer agent, to go talk to 20 other seller agents and come back and rank them and give them just two
Yeah.
to have to really talk to. So our goal is to do a lot of the noise that we had earlier, cut through the noise through agent to agent communication, and then
Yeah.
eventually only the calls with the highest signal and the highest quality have the humans talk to
Yeah.
themselves. So
I
today, these sellers are talking to doing all these noisy conversations,
yeah.
which we are hoping to cut down on. Yeah, over to
No,
you.
I think that is yeah. In fact, what you're doing is you're seeing you're noticing the asymmetry, which is
Right.
lots of sellers, few buyers
You
in the
bias.
market, and you're trying to say, hey, how can you use? And all these sellers are trying to not only get their attention but take up their time, if you want to think of it that
Right.
way. And you're saying basically, hey, how can I help this side buy better, and save the buyer's time, which is precious, right? Because of the asymmetry there. But yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I really.
Actually, so just to add something to you said, right? It turns out that if sellers are helping their buyers buy better or participating in the buyer journey, that's the best way for them to have the first right of refusal to their revenue,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So sellers are not thinking that way. They, because buyers, and I've spoken to over 150 200 buyers and another 100 150 sellers since January of this year,
Mm.
and I have strong opinion here. So buyers, when you look at their journey, they have a problem they're trying to solve. They don't know which vendor yet to work with, and they're just busy. Meanwhile, a vendor interrupts their workflow and says, I am this vendor, I have these features, buy me. Now whether those features are aligned to solving problem, the vendor doesn't know and the buyer is not sharing. So this is the gap we want to bridge, where
Hmm.
buyers problems are broadcasted to vendors, and then the
Yeah.
when vendors participate, they're actually solving the buyer's problem and not trying to sell the
Yeah,
tool.
I get it. And really, I am a big proponent because I'm actually a product guy that is forced to sell because I'm a startup founder, and this is
Mhm.
my second startup. So I now feel very much like a salesperson all the time. But
Nice.
I actually found when I was sort of getting into selling, I really resonated with, I think the quote is from Mark Cuban. He said, when I figured out that selling was just helping people, it became a
Right.
lot easier. And I
So
think that's very true, right? So yeah,
true.
I mean, first of all, it is game changing. I think I'll be following your journey with Zier, and I think you're onto something for sure. Um, I would love to actually, getting back to the topic of
Yeah.
prospecting. When you see people prospect today, because you know a lot of people, what's working out there? Like, For instance, you
Yeah.
yourself, you're a startup founder. How do you
Yeah.
go about prospecting? Uh, what are you doing to get these qualified meetings that everyone is so desperate to get when they're a startup? What do you
Excellent.
think is working out there?
Such a great question, because there's so many things that don't work. So let me talk about generic what work, and I'll share a unique perspective or a proprietary playbook that I use myself.
Yeah.
And every time I use, I get 50 plus meetings.
Oh wow.
And
You got my attention now.
sometimes the maximum I have received is 120 meetings or so from the playbook. So I'll tell you in a minute. Um, what's working is micro campaigns
Mm,
using like clay type spreadsheets, using a ton of signals and signals that are hard to find, right? That is proprietary to your business. So instead of lazy sellers, they send 1,000 emails, 10,000 emails, million emails, right, at a time with no personalization. Doesn't always necessarily help for reasons we discussed earlier, but sending 10 emails, right, or sending small batches or cohorts that are carefully designed using custom signals, and then
mm,
messaging is aligned to the signal that you
mm.
are using, because signals are those creating those context. When you take advantage of what is top of mind for the buyers,
Yeah.
and then coming up with a solution to address the top of mind, that is when magic happens, right? So that's the
It
right way to.
It's
Uh,
so true. And these, the last podcast that we recorded, we just released actually this last week,
mhm.
was with actually one of our customers, Casey Drake. He's with Endear. And their signal is they look for when they sell CRMs to retailers, and they look for when the retailer opens a new store. Now, that's not a signal that happens every day. It's
Sure.
also not a signal he can buy from anyone. He
Right.
actually like, but then he can craft a very specific message, congratulating them, naming the store exactly where it is, and it's a very focused campaign, right? And
That's that's the future. Those are the pots of gold. And once you get hold of it, you can keep riding it for long enough time. Eventually, maybe you will need to migrate to other signals, and
yeah,
as your competitors start to do the same, and then it gets noisy. And um, the second, um, I think, playbook that works is um, use the networks, and that where your buyers hang out, and create a tribe, because
mm,
it's CAC is rising for everybody. So there was this research from Winning by Design that looked at top 50 public SaaS companies,
mm.
and they concluded that CAC went up by 60% in the last 3 years for them,
Oh wow.
and it'll continue to rise. So you're a product guy, so you'll understand this, right? So AI is lowering the cost of product development to like
Mm,
near zero, which means every sector will just have more and more vendors,
mm.
right? The TAM is not increasing, but number of vendors will double or triple in the next 12, 18 months. Then, like, companies that are having a hard time differentiate or find customers, they're just going to have to compete with like two times three. Never before have we had this situation where number
Mm.
of vendors have increased so dramatically, because
Mm.
it doesn't cost anything to build. So CAC will rise, and budgets will shift from product development to go to market, because go to market will just keep getting more and more difficult, right? So, good for companies like ours, where
Yeah.
we'll see increased budget, but it's
Maybe
uh,
not good for the industry as a whole. Maybe I don't know.
not good for the right, because average revenue per vendor will also drop, because it will have
Yeah,
to be
that makes
shared
sense.
with many other vendors, right?
Exactly.
So this is where having a tribe will really help, right? So a bunch of buyers that only talk to you because you have helped them, you've created a chemistry, or they love
Mm,
your sales team or yourself, and
mm.
initiatives like the one you're doing, like this podcast, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
creates a tribe of people. I think those are going to create differentiation, where commoditized vendors will just copy each other and just throw something out there and
yeah,
try to get some customers. Premium vendors will create these tribes
yeah.
of people that will want to work with you for reasons beyond just the product, right? For your go to market. So I think I am personally very invested on LinkedIn as a network. So
Yes.
I started doing this about a year and a half ago when I was at RB2B. I think there's a way to create a super efficient organization just through execs writing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you could generate enough traffic, enough sales if you have extreme PLG on the back end, where you don't need sales team, don't need marketing team. I mean, I'm talking about an extreme situation. This is
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
did at RB2B, and it
Yeah.
got me into LinkedIn. But now I'm refining it. And I'll share the playbook I use to get meetings. You asked, how do I get meetings?
Yes, I
Uh,
have to. I mean, you're the first of all. Before you get into that, I had no idea. You said you've only been on LinkedIn like in this mode only a year and a half.
yeah.
So I didn't go back and see how far you. But I was going to say this later on, but I've learned so much from your LinkedIn posts. I find it very interesting. You're a handful of people that whenever you post something, I make sure I read it because it's always interesting. It's not always about your product or your product, but I just find it very interesting. So I'm surprised that you're so new to it because you seem to do it so well, and so I'd love to learn more from you on how you do it. But yeah, please share your playbook.
Yeah, so this was very intentional when I was building RB2B. Before that, I had 5,000 followers. I wrote maybe once a month or once in 3 months on LinkedIn. I mostly consumed, didn't write as much. But when we decided we're going to do this, I started writing 2 3 times a week, right? And
Mm,
I'm a big believer. The way I sell. My background is also in product, so you can imagine we can
yeah,
relate.
we
Uh,
share a lot of that common.
Right. So the way I sell is I like to provide value upfront,
Yes.
then have a ask, right? So LinkedIn allows me to do that, where by sharing content, in a way, I'm providing some value, very small micro value. Now, LinkedIn doesn't have is not a good forum to have an ask at the end, but I have created a system which really works well for me. So here's what I do.
Okay.
So I'm very careful about what I'm writing. A lot of them, it might seem disparate, but I have picked up 2 or 3 content pillars because of my audience, and I only write around that. I don't just write anything that comes in mind. I've tried, it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have, like, you'll find my content only around go to market or entrepreneurship or a little bit
Yeah.
of uh, like growth. So I try to limit to that. I read a lot about AI. I have strong opinions, and then particularly given my engineering product background. But as soon as I write that, nobody wants to engage because I don't have that tribe. So that's something to keep in mind to
Mm,
really be very careful about your content pillars and your ICP.
mhm.
Now, within that, here's my playbook. So every 3 or 4 posts, I try to write one post where I have an ask. So it's kind of disguised. And the way I do it is, let's say I'm building a product and I need some feedback, or I need early users, or I need
Mm,
customers, right? So I write about that topic in general. Um, and let's say 300, 400 people engage with that post, either through likes, comments, or they visit
yeah.
my profile. So I have an automation going on. As soon as they engage, within minutes, my automation picks them up and it scrubs it against an ICP that I have defined. So let's say
Mm,
I only want to talk to VP level and above of
mm,
certain size companies, right? So it's just looking at who engaged with that content, and because the intent or signal is already built in because I wrote that content, so I know they are interested in this topic, and
yeah.
that's why they're engaging, right? As soon as they match with my ICP, I drop a LinkedIn message which looks like it's coming from me. It's all automated.
Mm,
The message says, "Hey, I noticed you engaged with my post, and here's my calendar link. Would you like to get on a call for 15 minutes? I'll show you what I'm building." It's
yeah.
very generic. It's one liner. I use the same message for every meeting. I don't like over engineer it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the magic: an average of 50% of the time, they book the meeting. So my conversion is over 50%.
Wow.
And I have tried to rationalize why is that so. I'm sure eventually this will also go mainstream, and then
Yeah,
nobody will
yeah.
convert. But right now, I'm getting so as soon as I drop that link to hundreds of people that matched, my calendar, I watch and wait, boop, 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 like it gets filled up for like next 4 weeks. I
That's
allocate two,
brilliant.
3 hours for meetings, and then it's like for next several weeks, within like a few hours, my calendar is full, right? And
Oh, that's brilliant.
the reason this works, or at least I think, I may be wrong, is because when you write a post that somebody engaged with, there is this um, like a micro celebrity effect or hello effect. They've got some value and
Mm.
they're actually happy to create a meeting in my calendar. So remember, all of these meetings are coming inbound. I didn't send any email to them,
Hmm.
and it's their choice whether to book or not, right?
Yeah.
So I noticed that if I didn't do this within 6 hours, 4 hours of their
Yeah.
engagement, they forget who I am
Yeah.
because they're liking many different posts, like not just mine, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't know me, so I
So
have to.
timeliness, being very timely with
That
that
is
is,
really important to have high conversion.
yeah.
And then they just come on call and they just want to. They're talking about the post. They're talking about like just curious, and these are very senior people because the app has already pre-qualified them,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, they won't get my. So they are generally people that are difficult to show up on meeting otherwise, and
Yeah.
then I respect that because I try not never to sell. Even when I
Yeah.
have to sell, I just answer questions and I'm polite, and
Yeah.
I keep it 15 minutes. I don't sell. Even if I have to sell, I have my sales rep or somebody else reach out separately on a different forum, saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
you spoke to Santosh. Can I share what we do?" And try to. But this has worked. I've run this campaign at least 10 to 15 times.
That's
Each time
brilliant.
I've received like 50 plus meeting.
Now I got to ask you this. First of all, thank you for sharing that. It's very kind of you to unpack that for us. I have to ask this question, like, you know, how much time do you spend?
Right,
The magic is obviously the high quality content, in my
right,
opinion. Like I know you said, hey, I've got this wonderful automation, but really the magic is all
sure,
it's engaging. You're helping people, high value. You know, what I hear you saying is, hey, if you're a founder, if you're a senior executive, it's imperative. It's one of the biggest drivers for
right,
inbound demand. You need to, and most executives I know would say, I don't have enough time, or I would say, just being self-disclosing, uh, I can't. I've wanted to do that, and I have not been able to sustain it because I can't think of it. Maybe being product guys, like we are thoughtful. We want to say
right, right.
something thoughtful. So, how much time do you spend, or how do you get around that? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
hey,
No, those are great questions, and those are questions I have thought a lot about. But first, let me talk about execs and why this is important, right? Where business is going,
yeah,
CAC is going to rise, and branding was done by teams, branding teams
mm,
earlier. But now, when is the last time you ever listened to or cared about what the Google or Microsoft's company account ever said? You don't care. But 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we did care. There was press
yeah,
releases, and now you care about what their individuals that work in those companies say, right? So brand is being created by senior execs. Now, here's the second point. The Think about where a SDR is sending out a message to find a fit. They are the junior most employee in your company sending out a message to the senior most employee, which is
yeah,
a CEO or a decision maker or a VP, right? That
mm,
doesn't seem That's just unfair. Or
yeah,
I find it unfair for the like
yeah,
both sides. It's unfair, right? Because I have been on the other side. I know I'm not going to get any value by even giving 15 minutes of my time, right? All they're going to do is ask me qualifying question. So I want to
yeah,
flip that. Now, the right conversation is where the CEO at this side and the CEO at the other side, or VP at this side, they get on a 15-minute call. Now, time is a problem for both sides. So this has to be done at a scalable manner. And
yeah,
this is where I find LinkedIn. is where you can create trust and credibility. You almost begin to know the other person. You feel like
Yeah,
you know
no,
them.
no doubt.
Over time, it creates consistency, right? Now,
Yeah,
to
no
your
doubt.
question, how do you find time and how do you get ideas? I don't spend more than, say, a couple of hours, 2, 3 hours a week on this content. So here's my process or playbook. So throughout the week, I keep as I'm doing these internal meetings, I keep a notepad open. And if I'm having a problem or somebody comes to me with a problem, I instantly run a check. Is this a problem that others are having out there?
Mm,
Or if somebody shares me a solution or an interesting insight, I feel like, is this something that others out there could also benefit from? And then I
mm.
keep typing on my tiny notepad. And end of the week, like on a Saturday or a Sunday, I have like 2, 3 hours blocked or a couple of hours where I
Yeah.
really think through which one of these I should write on. The writing part is, I think, easy as long as I have a
Yeah.
whole library of these ideas
Yeah. I agree.
inside. And not every post does well. Some posts, don't do well. Some do well, but I'm trying to be consistent. And
Yeah.
like right now, I don't need customers or I don't have to. So I've slowed down my posts. I'm doing once a week. But I used to, when I was at RB2B, like last year, this time, or all of last year, I was doing 3 posts a week. And I will switch to three in a couple of months once we launch our product.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can
Yeah,
accordingly.
that's good stuff. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That is going to be helpful. You know, I suspect there may be someone who's a startup founder, doesn't have your illustrious career, doesn't have my background, and they may be saying, Santosh, great for you. You have this fantastic network. You have the credibility. Do you, if if you're speaking to that startup founder who's struggling to build a pipeline, what are 2 or 3 things that they should do? And maybe it is just get out there and start
Right.
posting, whether or not you have the network, just start posting. Any other thoughts on sort of
Yeah.
like that's
So
the startup founder without your notoriety and experience, but they
my response is,
yeah,
remember, I didn't do this like 12, 18 months ago. I
yeah,
started afresh. And then it's easy to get growth very quickly. Now, everybody has some interesting insight, or my recommendation is, don't chase other people's success. If
mm,
somebody else wrote a content that did well, don't try to copy, don't try to just write
uh,
that. Try to build your own, because people can, your own story, your own journey, right? Because people can sniff through authenticity and credible, like, so, and
that's so
it's an
important.
investment for the long run. So if someone is young and they don't have the story, that's fine. Like, invest for the next 10 years, 20 years of your career, right?
Yeah,
And sometimes, one last thing, if you pick a space, like I have my own space, which is go to market, right? So if
yeah,
somebody's starting a career, say in manufacturing and automation, right, they pick that space, and then they start to create inside. But the real value in that space, and how they package content that's somebody else's content, they just give their commentary on it, right? That itself is valuable.
yeah,
And then the
yeah,
key is to keep helping people in your tribe one on one. I think so. In my case, the response that I do through comments, and sometimes I do one on one, and sometimes I get on call with people that engage with the post. I think that is more valuable than the post itself,
yeah.
because that way I've created at a scalable manner. I've spoken to thousands of people and created a community that are willing to help. Now, if I go with an ask, I don't feel bad, and they don't feel bad helping me.
That is very true because I kind of met you through the LinkedIn thing, and
Right?
I saw it and I responded, and then I DM'd you, and then we started we met at one time. So, yeah, you're obviously living it. So, yeah, let's switch topics. Let's talk about the impact of AI on go to market. You are a big thinker. Yeah, I love the way you think about the big picture. Big picture, how is AI affecting go-to-market organizations and the way they operate? Go anywhere with that. What are your observations?
So we spoke briefly how AI is going to change the number of vendors in each category.
Yeah.
Another point, what AI will do is put a lot of downward pricing pressure for premium vendors. I believe that there were some companies that were benefiting disproportionately, right?
Mm,
It's like the VCs invest excess capital in hoping that some companies do winner take all, which
mm,
is how the market worked in the last decade or two, right? Every sector, there are like some companies like Salesforce and HubSpot that take
mm,
80% of market share, and then everybody else is fighting for the crumbs, right? And you see vertical after vertical. I feel like the market share will get more democratized.
mm.
Um, the barriers will drop there. There will be more outcome based pricing rather than multi-year deals and
Mm,
expensive just because of branding. I think there's going to be democratization or unbundling of information as well, where companies like Gartner's or others that have they had a lock on certain insights,
yeah,
and so AI is going to unbundle everything or democratize. Um, so this will also create opportunities where small companies that couldn't get deals earlier, now they have access to deals, right? Buyers
yeah,
that wouldn't work with small companies because they thought they were too risky, now they will have the willingness to. So in general, I think this will that all that is market level. Inside the company, I am not a believer that AI will replace salespeople or
mm,
AI will sell, because eventually trust is created when you and I, like two humans, talk.
yeah,
This is not. I think this is the problem, not the solution. The problem in sales is we made it too transactional. We
yeah,
thought machines could sell, just send million emails, just automate the heck out of it, and that'll take
yeah,
care of it, right? That was the problem. Not we do need automation, and I think the right kind of automation is just like we humans use calculator, even though we understand calculations, but we don't want to do big numbers. That's just inefficient, right? So
yeah,
similarly, the tools are going to evolve where I'm having this conversation with you in the context. Maybe I will see some overlay on top of my Zoom meeting, or right where I get information that is very contextual, very intelligent, that helps and aids my conversation, makes these sellers superhumans or much better
yeah,
rather than replace them. And
yeah,
this will result in smaller sales team, but then higher quota and more efficient sellers or more efficient marketers. And there'll be a lot of the playbooks, I think, will get just automated. That'll be AI driven. So one last thing, if you thought about like enterprise marketers, enterprise sellers, they were a lot more sophisticated. They did ABN, and then if you thought
yeah,
about SMB marketers and sellers, they're like they didn't have a reputation to protect, so they were like, why bother? Let's just do
yeah.
something
But
silly, and they didn't even have budgets, right? What AI and agents are doing is taking complex, thoughtful, elaborate playbooks, packaging it, making it available for SMBs at a low budget and low cost, so they can run more complex and sophisticated playbooks as well, which earlier they just couldn't for a variety of reasons if AI
yeah,
didn't existed, right? So AI is going to have an impact. I think overall, it's just going to be better for everybody. I understand we'll go through a period of unrest, transition.
yeah,
Okay, nobody loves transition, but at the other end, I think we'll just be running far more efficient organizations and not wasting our time doing things that AI could do, and just focusing on things that really were high value for
and to the point, if you can run an organization more efficiently, that allows smaller organizations to find their place in their market as well, right?
right,
So back to your original point where um, used to be that one or two dominant players, and what I
right,
think you're saying is it's going to be democratized. Market share is going to be democratized,
right. So no more
or
winner take all.
yeah, and what enables that is every organization can function and be more effective with a smaller footprint of sort of human resource is is
Cool.
is what I think will enable that. But yeah, uh, going to wrap up here because I actually have more questions, but But you've posted recently about SEO, so I'm very interested in that. But
Yeah,
um, we are coming to the end of our time, so I may have to have you back on again separately to just talk about that. But
sure.
usually, I like to wrap up by talking about asking something a little more personal. I noticed about a year ago, I may be getting a time wrong, but you actually, if I'm not mistaken, you post about taking a week in the woods on your own in solitude. And tell me a little bit about that. Like, why did you do that? What were the benefits? And you said some of it in your post, but and what drove that? Like, and
Yeah.
is that you know?
I try to do this once a year. I find in day-to-day life, if you're passionate, you are like especially founder type people
Yeah,
like us, we get carried away, we respond to things, we almost forget, or at least in my case, I forget what really matters. So
yeah,
when I'm out in the woods just living off nothing, out of the grid, and I realize I can just live with just a backpack thing that I can carry on my back. I really don't need much, right? So
yeah,
I'm I begin to realize what really mattered, and that just resets my clock in some way.
yeah.
I write a lot when I'm there. Last time when I went to Aspen, I wrote about 300 pages, some for
Wow.
my daughter and wife, and I begin to value relationships and
Mm,
things outside of work a lot more.
yeah,
Because and I feel like that's really important to balance your ambition to like asking questions like why do I exist, where should I spend the rest of my time on this planet, right? Or what do I do
absolutely.
next 12 months that really matters, and not live life that other people like
Yeah.
versus live life that you really care about
Yeah,
intention.
absolutely. I mean, I think what separates us between us and machines, especially now that we're in the age of AI, is that you measure machines by sheer performance, and we're humans. There's so much more to us, right? And
So
being
true.
able to nurture that, take care of that, and actually rebalance sort of who we are as human beings is so important. So, um, hey, Santosh, we're run out of time. Like I said, there are a ton of other things I'd love to talk to you about, but thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. I appreciate so much what you're doing, what you're sharing. I said this to you already. I'm always learning from you, whether it's on a LinkedIn post or a bit of wisdom on a podcast. So I encourage everyone who's listening, follow Santosh on LinkedIn. You won't regret it. So, Santosh, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. This was a terrific conversation. I love the diversity of questions we covered. And you and I share, we have had similar journeys. Would love to
Yes,
continue talking.
yes, absolutely. Thanks.